Oh, you like your peanut butter, don't you, Mortimer? Oh, he's a good boy.
Oh my god, he has more hair.
Hey friends, did you know that climate change is definitely real and definitely affected by human action? I had to ask because, well, some people deny that that's happening. And this video's about them. Now, I'm not here to pretend that there's a real debate in science about whether CO2 affects global temperatures or whether humans have a hand in it. The science is settled and the deniers are wrong.
Oh yeah, call them deniers to make them look bad. That's a classic straw man argument. They're not denying climate change, they're just skeptical that
Why does this illustration have such a huge package?
it's happening. See, it's actually very smart when you put it that way. And look how this degenerate refuses to engage in reasonable debate with people who disagree with him. That's not rational at all. How can the issue be settled if you haven't debunked your opponent's points?
Look, mate, I hate to be dogmatic, but I think any reasonable
Do I like maybe get furries for the first time?
analysis of
I'm
climate
joking.
deniers has to contend with the extreme deficit of actual facts on the side of people who claim to be the ones who know the facts better than the actual researchers. When someone specifically positions themselves as pro-science and fetishizes the idea of reason, the fact they're being unreasonable is something that needs to be brought up. We're gonna get into it, but if someone's evidence is so poor that even me, a gaming YouTuber who got peanut butter in his ear when he was setting up the first shot for this video, can see the holes in it, then something's really gone wrong here. So in this video, we're gonna look at some prominent climate
Radically
deniers,
wrong.
what they have to say, why what they say is
Yeah, maybe
clearly
that's why I
wrong,
like cats so
why they
much.
seem to believe it anyway, how people get to be climate
And
deniers,
Robin Hood.
and what we can do to make there be less of them. Nailed it! I suppose one thing you could do is just let the ice sheets melt. I mean, the problem would kind of go away if most of them drowned. Oh, I'm dying! Oh, I guess I was wrong! Oops! We're all gonna die! Now, climate
thank
denialism
you for the
doesn't
gift.
come in just one flavour. No, like ogres, the issue has layers. And unlike ogres, climate deniers are not all-stars. Although the ice they skate is getting pretty thin, and the water's getting warm, so they might as well swim. Smash Mouth's All-Star was about climate change. Changed my mind! Deniers range from claiming the climate
Wait.
isn't actually changing at all, to admitting that the climate changes but that humans don't have an effect and it's probably just normal that things have got so warm lately, I'm sure it'll go back to normal soon, to claiming that CO2 doesn't really have an effect on the climate, to saying that even if it does, it's actually good for us since plants need CO2, to saying it's real but it's not that bad and scientists are exaggerating, to saying, well, look, I'm confused. A lot of people are saying a lot of different things, so I guess it's still up for debate and we shouldn't do anything.
Dude, this is a video from 5 years ago. And to look at the list now of the layers of denial, it's mind-shattering. Like, climate isn't changing, humans aren't affecting it, CO2 is fake, CO2 is good, it's just a few particles, how bad can it be? That to me is like normal climate denialism, as insane as it is to say that. But now it's not even just this. Yeah, don't forget that it's too late to do anything.
That's great. See, even cowards have a place in denialism. If you haven't heard of Ben Shapiro, then your YouTube recommendations bar is glitched out. Shapiro is a conservative commentator who's very popular with people who already agree with him, and he's really good at winning debates with teenagers who haven't finished university and don't have all the media training he has. He was editor-at-large of Breitbart for 4 years, and he's written 10 books about how it's the left's fault that conservatism keeps making things worse for everyone. He's a true intellectual gymnast, the kind that can write tweets decrying when the left talk about how they're on the right side of history, and then publish an entire book called The Right Side of History. Here he is, dipping his webbed flippers into the pool of climate change with his signature, Shapiro intellect.
So let's say, for the sake of argument, that all of the water levels around the world rise by let's say 5 feet over the next 100 years, say 10 feet by the next 100 years, and it puts all the low-lying areas on the coast underwater, right? Which, let's say all of that happens. You think that people aren't going to just sell their homes and move?
problem? Sell their houses to who, Ben? Fucking Aquaman!
Fucking Aquaman. I think one of the greatest scams ever successfully pulled off is Ben Shapiro convincing a lot of people that he is an intellectual, that he is a debate king, that he is the guy who his mind makes liberals weep. Because when you break down when you break down anything, any argument of Ben Shapiro's, first of all, he just talks really fast. He talks really fast because that is a strategy that people who are not actually that smart but want you to think they're smart and want to own you do. They just talk really fast and they're like blah, 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 because they don't want to give you a chance to fully hear every asinine thing that they are saying, and also not have a chance to respond to it all. So they just simply get out more words than their opponent. Like if you're breaking down who spoke more, and oftentimes whoever speaks more in a debate is viewed as is viewed as the winner. Just talk super fast. Just talk at super speed and spit out a bunch of shit, and don't give your opponent a chance to be able to respond to all of it. Talking fast is like a hurricane smashing down any resistance. Yeah. Harder to few points when they're thrown at you all at once. Yeah, and then the other thing Ben does is a lot of his brilliant arguments are framed around, well, stop being poor. Lunette, thank you for the 17 months. Just stop being poor. Hello? Just stop being poor and then you'll be fine.
It was watching this talk by Shapiro that got me wanting to look at and analyse climate denial in more detail. Because this absolute genius-brained idea that everyone affected by things like floods can just sell their homes to people who would love to buy a flooding house, apparently, and move somewhere else, well, it begs a lot of questions about...
Yeah, also, how are you going to sell a home when you can't even get fucking insurance on that home, okay? Yeah, here, you want to buy my house where it's in a very vulnerable... area of land, and also you can't get insurance.
How these people think. How have things reached a point where someone thinks they can get away with saying something this ridiculous in front of an audience of people, and how have things reached the point where some people in that audience won't recognise it for the obvious ignorant bullshit that it is? This led me down a particular hole of discovery. I realised that climate deniers aren't just wrong. They're obviously wrong. In very clear ways, and that makes the whole thing so much more interesting. How does this work if it's so paper thin? Take, for example, Stephen Crowder. Stephen Crowder is a conservative political commentator, and Wikipedia tells me he's a comedian, which I'm glad they mentioned or I wouldn't have noticed. Crowder's YouTube channel is his special place to wax lyrical about topical conservative issues. He's a rational thinker who doesn't play by anyone's rules and will follow truth wherever it leads. Although it always seems to lead to whatever he wanted to believe in the first place. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that he never has to change his mind about anything. Crowder has a big beef with Bill Nye, as we've seen in the past, but that's a byproduct of his more general climate denial. Of course, Crowder denies being a climate denier. Crowder positions himself as a climate realist who acknowledges that the climate has changed and is changing. It's just not changing in the way that all the scientists say it does. In other words, he's denying the science, but in denial about denying the science. His most popular video on the topic has almost 2 million views and claims to debunk the top 5 climate change myths. We'll get to his others later. Regarding this one first, however, he's wrong. This video and everything in it has been debunked repeatedly and epically by many people online on the internet already, so I'm not going to really do that too much. Okay, you've noticed it by now. There's no avoiding it. When I was hitting the wall with the axe, I got a little bit of debris on my mouth, and I didn't notice it for a couple takes. Just try not to look at it and we'll all get through
I
it
didn't
together.
even notice.
What I want to draw attention to here is how blatantly wrong it is to anyone who's willing to do even a smidgen of research. One of the myths he tries to debunk is that the ice sheets are melting.
Number 2, you've heard this one everywhere. The ice sheets are melting.
It's easier to convince someone of a lie than to convince them they've been lied to.
If the ice sheets were melting, it would cause an increase in sea levels as all of the water in the ice makes its way into the oceans. It would also increase CO2 levels because CO2 is stored in ice and then escapes when it melts. It would affect the albedo of the planet, its ability to reflect the heat and light of the sun. It wouldn't just make things worse on its own, it would exacerbate the process by which things are getting worse. But don't worry. Stephen Crowder's done a picosecond of Googling, and he's decided that they're not melting. In fact, they're growing.
The Antarctic ice sheets are actually growing by billions of tons per year. Does that come to me from climate change denial /flatearthers.com? No, how about NASA? According to the new analysis of satellite data, the Antarctic
Crowder has the definition of punchable face. I look at his face and I want to punch.
ice sheet showed a net gain of 112 billion tons of ice per year from 1992 to 2001.
Oh shit, he's using facts and logic! Sound the alarms! Battle stations! Prepare for impact!
He used to go to parties,
one question.
sitting on the
When
floor
you said
drinking
ice
milk, trying to hold
sheets,
court.
That's a plural sound. Could it be that there's another ice sheet, say in Greenland,
You're telling me that guy's a milk
where
drinker?
the opposite
Shocking.
is true and it's melting really quickly, and maybe there's a net loss of ice? I wonder what he'll say about. He doesn't bring it up. He doesn't just pretend Greenland doesn't exist.
According to the European Environmental Agency, between the years of 2002 to 2011, Greenland lost an average of 215 billion tons of ice per year. Then in 2012, it lost 500 billion. So if you do some quick maths there, you'll probably notice that even if Antarctica is growing at the rate Crowder says it is, which we'll get back to that later, over 100 billion tons of ice per year is now water in our oceans, which appear to be rising for some inexplicable reason. Look, if you live in Venice, just sell your house to the Innsmouth people and move away. It's fine. It's
There's also the slightly deeper problem that Crowder's point about the Antarctic ice sheets isn't actually true either. The article that he posts up links to a study in the Journal of Glaciology entitled "Mass Gains of the Antarctic Ice Sheet Exceed Losses." Note that it says Antarctic ice sheet because it's talking about the Antarctic ice sheet on its own and not the one in Greenland, which is melting.
The study was focused on a specific part of East Antarctica, which most climatologists agree is growing. The question has been how much, and whether this offsets the overall losses in West Antarctica, which is melting, and whether Antarctica overall is losing or gaining ice. Linked in the description is a really interesting...
You know the other thing, too, with people like Crowder and all these lion-ass right-wing commentators, you always have to look at who are these lies for? Who benefits from it? What is the incentive? Because yeah, that's a great quote. You can't reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. Is it easier to tell people what they want to hear? And is there more of a trade-off there? So people don't want to hear that the planet is burning. They don't want to hear about climate change. They don't want to hear about how human causes have human effects. And so, yes, it's easier to tell these people what they want to hear versus telling them, nobody wants to hear about climate change. It's not like you guys are like, yes, climate change. For those of us who believe science and are not climate denialists, we're not excited about climate change. We're not like, this isn't what we want to hear. I am. Okay, besides Ashley. Because the truth is horrible. Of course it is. To see how human greed and there being not an end to that human greed in sight is destroying our planet, and seeing the effects of that, seeing bodies of water dry up, seeing species go extinct, seeing these worsening natural disasters. You know? You also can't convince someone to change an opinion when their paycheck depends on not believing it. Yeah, and then also, looking at who's being paid to say what. Am I being paid by scientists to talk about climate change? Are these meteorologists Venmoing me to be like, oh yeah, by the way, climate change is real? Yes, I am, actually.
Breakdown by Shannon Hall for Scientific American. No, Paul, not the blog section. An actual article exploring why other climatologists disagree with this particular study's findings. The study calculated the height of glaciers using methods...
No, I mean, by easy, I mean these people will continue to tune in by the masses, because this is what they want to hear. They want to hear what they're hearing, what they're being told. And so they'll continue to be paying customers. They'll continue showing up. They'll continue, they will continue just being soldiers for these content creators, or, people in media who make a lot of money off of them and need them to fight these battles online to churn more clicks and views.
Which other scientists have argued is less accurate than other available ones, which presents a danger of the results having been thrown off. And furthermore, the study assumes that the height increase is all ice, whereas others would contend it is largely or partly snowfall, which is a whole lot less water. Other studies using different techniques conclude a much smaller increase, which means the net change in ice in Antarctica would be a loss and not a gain in ice. In other words, Crowder found basically the one study that contends that the mass gain exceeds the losses elsewhere in Antarctica, not net in terms of all the ice sheets, just in Antarctica, and went, oh, that's the one proof.
Easy to monetize.
Tons of people disagree about this, and they have pretty good reasons to. I highly recommend you read the article for yourself.
That's what we call the right-wing
grift. You could even read more than one thing before coming to a conclusion.
I could spend an hour on this paper, and maybe one day I will. Let me know in the comments. But we're pressed for time, so I will point out that the main author of that paper is not just NASA.
How about NASA?
More than NASA work on things individual people with names do. The main author of the paper, Jay Zwally, was interviewed in the Scientific American, and he had this to say. I'm actually going to read this in voiceover because I forgot to write it in my notes.
When our paper came out, I was very careful to emphasize that this is in no way contradictory to the findings of the IPCC report or conclusions that climate change is a serious problem that we need to do something about.
Even if Zwally's paper is 100% accurate, which many of his associates have reasonable reasons to say is not correct, but even if, we're still net losing far more ice through the other sheets, and the author of the paper believes that climate change is in fact happening, he just thinks it hasn't started happening in Antarctica yet. And that actually does make some sense. The last thing to start melting would be the coldest place in the world, right? I just realised that I don't know if it's actually the coldest place. Pretend I said one of the most coldest places. Oh, I'm gonna weasel my way out of all of my mistakes. Oh, I learned it from watching you, Stephen!
Crowder's website is just full of this shit. The website is largely very short articles about how AOC is a demon, or healthcare is communism, or women's bodily autonomy is basically...
The coldest place on Earth is a high ridge in the East Antarctic Plateau, where temperatures can drop to negative 136 degrees Fahrenheit. This was recorded on August 10th, 2010.
The Boxer Rebellion, usually ending in links to whatever video he did lately that's tangentially related to the subject. The articles themselves are authored by the site's editor, Courtney Kirchhoff. I hope it's not Kirchhoff. I could check, how to pronounce her name, you know, do basic research, but I feel in the spirit of things I should just not fucking bother. One particular article that interests me is this one from March this year. Climate change fail! Melting glacier is growing again! The article is the usual waffle about how everything's always changing and therefore climate change isn't a threat or something, but the point it's dancing around is that a glacier that has been melting in the past is currently growing. Then there's another couple paragraphs of needless editorializing about how this proves there's nothing wrong with the climate, claiming that the melting was caused by human action is wrong because it's not melting anymore, weird pontificating about big government wanting to control people's lives, and a gif from Zoolander. In other words, it's the most educated piece of conservative journalism I've seen all year.
Hey, hbomberguy here. Two things about this interest me. Firstly, just want to point out that there's no mention of Greenland in Crowder's website or in his videos at all until the exact instant they think they can find a mention of it that proves what they think is happening. Secondly, even though they think they've finally found proof that things are better in Greenland, it's still just thinly disguised bullshit. The problem is the impression that Crowder and his website want to give. Here's a graph of the mass of Greenland's ice sheets from late 2016 to January 2017. See? It's just like she said. It's just a natural ebb and flow. Sometimes ice melts, but it comes back. See? It's almost gained back all of the ice.
Also, are you going to listen to Steven fucking Crowder, who's, you know, when he's not too busy screaming about no-fault divorces, is cherry picking climate data and using that to using that to come to his conclusion that this is all just bullshit. You're gonna listen to him, or you're gonna listen to scientists? You're gonna listen to people who this is their job. This is what they've dedicated their lives to. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna listen to the guy who sits on the floor drinking a cup of milk.
That it melted in the same time. It's fine. But that's a weirdly specific span of time for someone to talk about, isn't it? Why would they just show you that? I mean, time goes back a little bit further than that, doesn't it? Let's zoom out a little bit further to, say, 2002. Oh, I forgot! These people are fucking liars!
Ice sheets regaining mass in the colder parts of the year isn't unexpected and is in fact part of the process. Unfortunately, not all the melted ice comes back. The news piece is about one glacier doing better than expected, but this doesn't offset the clear general trend. If you were to draw a line here and pretend you'd found evidence the sheets were growing back as fast as they'd been melting, you would be doing a lie. Courtney is doing a version of that, while also pretending one glacier disproves a wider trend that's been documented for decades.
The glacier is growing about as quickly as it was shrinking. Oh my god, the word about is doing some fucking legwork there, isn't it, Courtney? Every single time it's documented that an ice sheet or a glacier actually gains in size, there's always a conservative or some blogger willing to point at it and go, look, that proves there's not a problem. Look at this and only this. The science was lies. When the point isn't that sometimes there's more ice than there was before, or sometimes some of it comes back. The point is that, on the whole, there's less of it. We're losing more than we're gaining.
One glacier is not an entire ice sheet. It's not unexpected that ice sheets grow, and the clock on how big ice sheets used to be didn't start 6 months ago. If everything's proceeding as normal, where did all this fucking water come from, Courtney?
So, here's the thing.
Yeah, and just keep in mind that the consensus on the fact that year over year climate change has been occurring, that global warming has not stopped. This is agreed on by every single climate research institution, the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, every National Academy of Sciences on Earth and every professional society as well. So, like, this is not something that there is at this point a rift within the science community. It is unanimously agreed on. And what climate deniers or what cherry pickers love to do is take advantage of the fact that year to year, the average temperature does vary. So some years it's warmer on average, some years it's colder. And so because of this variability, they will then cherry pick examples and say, well, see, this year was colder. So how could the globe be warming? There's a pause. There's been a lack of warming for a decade now. So it was warming and then it was cooling. Looks like it's fallen flat. I recommend reading the 2024 State of the Climate Report. It will make you cry, but it's very informative. The science is undeniable.
Let's think about this now. Crowder was wrong for a variety of
It will
reasons.
make you cry, but it's very informative. Yeah, that's usually the news when you when you consume it. Will make you cry.
Reasons, one of which was so simple that all you had to do was point out that there's more than one ice sheet. The one on his website is debunked by zooming out on a graph. Nothing I've pointed out here is special or unique. Like I said, this stuff is obvious to anyone who's willing to read a paper for themselves or do almost any kind of critical thinking or fact-checking. What I want to draw attention to here is this obviousness itself. Because if Crowder cares about science and facts and reason and truth, etc., blah, 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 how did Crowder miss this? I think it would be a mistake to interpret this as pure ignorance.
A much better explanation is that Crowder's business model has nothing to do with finding the truth or rational discourse or raising anyone's consciousness. His business model is about serving a demographic of conservative people who already feel a certain way about the world, and the product he's selling is ideology. Crowder's work isn't about having a real debate or debunking the science. It's making an audience that thinks climate change is fake feel like they have a good reason to believe that. Crowder's audience is people who want their pre-existing
Yes, that's what I was
beliefs
saying.
valid.
They want to hear this. They want somebody who is going to validate their beliefs. They want to hear from someone, yes, immigrants are taking your jobs. They are raping your daughters. Yes, climate change, overblown or just straight up a lie. Like they want their worldview to be affirmed. And so if somebody like Steven Crowder is telling them what they want to hear, then they're going to listen to this guy. They're going to give him money.
Dated. They don't actually want the truth. They want to feel like what they already think is the truth. And this, it turns out,
Is this
is a
old?
profitable
Yeah, it's from 5
business
years
model.
ago.
Not just in terms of the ad revenue from the views you'll get when you're telling an audience what they want to be told and how smart they are for wanting to be told it, but also in terms of merchandising. Crowder doesn't sell brain pills, yet he sells a mug to drink them out of. You know what's genius as well? You can't actually just fucking buy the mug, like on his store. No, his store's just, the fucking shittest merch ever. We had to discount the socialism baby onesie. Our warehouse is full of onesies that no one would ever buy. If you want to get into Crowder's #mug club, Crowder does a daily show
Hot.
for Blaze TV, basically Netflix for conservatives, and they charge a subscription of $99 a year. But if you do it through Crowder's website, they send you this mug. Made in China. So, the mug costs $99. You can't actually buy the mug. You cannot buy the mug. You have to $99. And this is the point, really. Crowder makes a decent living not having to do research, and instead serving an audience a piping hot daily serving of confirmation of their beliefs, which they eat up uncritically, because the point isn't learning, it's reassurance that they were already right. And then they all take a sip in unison from the most expensive utensil they'll ever own, which they bought specifically to signal that they support Reason Man and taking back the media? Is Crowder just mad that Fox News dropped him from the network? Crowder's duplicitous falsehoods work specifically because the audience wants to believe them. Not because they're ignorant, but because they want to be. Crowder's specific grift is in using the right power words: truth, logic, rationality, reason, science, to mask this deliberate ignorance.
Yeah, because here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. When you look at the type of person who's drawn to a Steven Crowder, they're drawn down this right-wing rabbit hole. There had to be something there to begin with that drew them here. It's not like they're me and all of a sudden see some Louder with Crowder video on TikTok and go, what? Like, I'm diving down this rabbit hole. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like that. When people get, when people go down the QAnon rabbit hole, when they are drawn to conspiracy theories, when they start, watching Andrew Tate, it's addressing something that they needed, that they were frankly looking for. So they might not be as extremist from when they first discovered whoever it is. That's that journey that they go on, but it's not like it goes from 0 to 100. Like, there was something that was there. There was a need, and then there was the answer to fulfilling that need. Louder with Crowder is a show you repeat Steven Crowder episodes verbatim, but you have to finish a bowl of boiling hot clam chowder at the same time. Louder with Chowder. Boiling hot clam chowder. Like, if it touches your tongue, it's burning the skin off your tongue.
In a technical
Louder
dreamcoat
with
of
chowder.
intellect. So the incredibly poor work in his videos is because they know these people will eat it up and trust that they did the research for them, so they don't have to. The ignorance of the audience occurs because they're only ever fed this stuff by their favorite conservative news websites and YouTubers and influencers, so they never have to stop and look at the real facts. They're convinced they are. They're just further down a chain designed to only feed them facts that they want.
Once you're wired into the conservative echo chamber, follow conservative thinkers on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, and read their news websites and buy their mugs and pills and books, you'll only ever come into contact with facts and information that happens to confirm your worldview. And we can see here just how easy it is to take a very specific thing that seems to confirm it, abstract away any inconvenient truths, and then present it as proof that you were already right and very smart and rational for believing it too. The work is shoddy, and the holes are poorly wallpapered over with scaremongering about the dangers of big government Mino-like. Not because they're genuinely trying to convince outsiders to change their minds, it's to try and protect the insiders from having to change their minds.
If John Kerry and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are Earth's climate change archangels, then just let the motherfucker burn. Finally, someone partaking in rational discourse. These people need to be taken seriously.
They have to invent a world where the problems that conservatism couldn't solve simply aren't really there. And frankly, I support this way of thinking. I would hate to have to live in the same world as horses. Weird, smug little pricks with their eyes and teeth. But I've done some research, and it turns out that horses don't exist! Yay!
Birds aren't real, y'all. Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me.
Man, the scale of the problem is so big, isn't it? I can see why the climatologists I know try not to bring the topic up too much in conversation. It's just depressing, especially if you agree with them, isn't it? Thinking about the scope of the problem. A lot of sweeping changes will have to be made very quickly on a large scale, or we'll be stuck in an uphill battle against the climate in the future. And given that we can't really personally bring about many of those changes on our own, what's really left to do on planet Earth other than wait to see what happens and run out the clock eating Nutella straight out of the jar?
Well, you could do that. And maybe sometimes you should. But Nutella is a sometimes food. And there are some things you can do about climate change, if you'd like to try.
Yeah. Paper straws, y'all. Oh God, those.
I'm cleaning it. I don't want to get on my hands
sounds,
later if I pick it up again.
Please,
Linked in the description is a
hbomber.
great video by Simon Clark, a science YouTuber getting a PhD in climate physics, talking about what we ought to be looking into to deal with climate change. His suggestions take place on the level of what sources we use for power and changes in legislation of businesses whose actions directly affect the climate. I think this is important to recognize because I find a lot of people tend to embrace more personal solutions, like driving a more efficient car or using public transport or going vegan and so on, and it has to be acknowledged that these personal choices aren't the primary driver of climate problems in the first place. The wider policies are. It's very easy to give in to the idea that the solution lies in you reducing your personal emissions to create a
You want to know who first introduced the carbon footprint and all the advertisement around how can you, as an individual, reduce your carbon footprint? Big oil, man. Big oil. BP. Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think they did that? Because putting the onus on us, on individuals who, yeah, we've all got a carbon footprint. It's not to say that, like, taking public transportation, reducing our carbon output are not good things, but it doesn't come close to the damage that is done by companies like BP. So of course they're out here like, reduce your carbon footprint. Each one of us can make a difference in this world, but not us, says BP. No, we're going to oversee the rest of you making a difference, but we're not going to do anything differently at all.
sense of control
Yeah.
and doing your
Didn't know they were such environmentalists. Good for them.
part for this big and scary thing, but that effort maybe ought to be spent fighting to get the big things done, getting people thinking and providing support for meaningful changes.
Basically, just don't make it personal.
What does BP stand for?
Climate change
Big
isn't your
pussy?
fault. It's the Koch brothers' fault.
Ooh.
Hey, Mortimer, what happened to my...
You know who else has lots of information about the
Mortimer's
environment?
dead.
This video's sponsor, CuriosityStream. They've recently expanded their library and there's more than 2,400 titles there now, including Climate, A Few Degrees Less, which breaks down the carbon cost of many key industries and what can be done to reduce them, and outlines the efforts of the Deep Decarbonisation Pathways Project, a global consortium whose goal is to prevent future climate crisis. Access to
British Petroleum?
CuriosityStream
No,
starts at
it's big
$2.99 a month, which is less than a jar of Nutella will cost you and significantly better for your health. But if you sign up at curiositystream.com/hbomberguy and use
Also,
hbomberguy as the promo
sometimes
code,
called
the
Big
first
PP.
31 days are free, so you could watch documentaries and have a jar of Nutella. Although, you shouldn't eat Nutella out of the jar. That was actually really bad for you. Don't. Then again, I can't criticize people's life choices. There's literally 2 empty eggshells from some soft-boiled eggs I had like 2 days ago just sitting on my desk directly under my mic. Like, seriously, listen. I just broke an eggshell in my hand that's just there on my desk. So, look, there's some good documentaries out there. I need to go wash my dishes, I'm sorry.
Speaking of being a morally compromised corporate shill, it's time to talk about Patrick Moore.
Patrick Moore is a Canadian
H-bomber!
activist and environmentalist. Moore was the leader of Greenpeace Canada for about 9 years. Moore is also in the climate denial game, but he's playing it on nightmare mode. His specific stance is that carbon dioxide levels are affected by humans, but that an increase in CO2 is actually great. CO2 is what plants crave, after all.
CO2 is the most important nutrient for all life on Earth. So
Yeah.
we've been skipping along on top
More
of this
CO2.
low point for CO2 for a long time now, and it's about time somebody did something about it.
And so what if sea levels rise? Don't you know that humans are mostly water? We need it to live. It's good for us. Drink up, fucker.
It's like Carlin said, the reason people came into existence is because the Earth wants plastic.
Oh my god, he's doing George Carlin, but not for a joke.
No!
And maybe the reason people came into existence is because the atmosphere wants a little more carbon dioxide for the plants. Who knows?
If only there were people whose job was to find out. Oh, you think those people are paid?
I wish that ghosts and demons were real for sure. Maybe they're not. But because George Carlin would haunt that motherfucker's ass for using him during a PowerPoint presentation to advocate for more carbon dioxide.
Chills who are just pretending it might be caused by humans for money.
This is NASA at its worst. They do good things too, but they also collect over $1 billion in climate change research money from the federal government in the United States. And they do this. CO2 controls Earth's temperature to keep getting that funding.
Here he is complaining about a comedy sketch Bill Nye did lately on the basis that he's being so mean about CO2, he's demonizing it and hurting its feelings. Has anyone noticed the fire extinguisher on the table as the Earth burns? Many fire extinguishers are filled with CO2. The science guy could have put the fire out with carbon dioxide, which he wrongly demonizes as the cause of the fire. I hate to break it to you, Mr. Moore, but Bill Nye was employing experimental technique some people might not have heard of before called a visual metaphor. I'm not sure if people have noticed, but this isn't actually literally happening to the planet. The Earth isn't actually on fire. What's actually happening is CO2 is contributing to trapping more heat in the atmosphere, causing a warming effect, which is tough to represent visually. When a fire extinguisher is used, the CO2 doesn't actually react with the fire directly to stop it from being fire. It actually displaces the oxygen that keeps the fire going, which...
How old is Bill Nye? He seems like he's never gonna die. He seems like he's maybe, unlike Brian Johnson, found the secret to immortality. Because I remember Bill Nye from when I was a kid, you know? He's been around forever. Well, you've just... No, I didn't mean to jinx him. No, I didn't mean to jinx him. No. No. Oh, my God. Oh, did I just kill Bill Nye? I'm sorry, Bill Nye. He's only 68? What? Maybe it's because Bill Nye's been one of those guys who's looked old for a long time. You know how there are people who have just always... seem to be the same age forever? That's Bill Nye.
Helps extinguish it, with the secondary effect that the CO2
Bill
in the
Nye,
pressurized container is
out?
colder than room temperature, and therefore the CO2 is not a magic turn fire off gas. Having more in the atmosphere doesn't mean fires will go out easier. God damn it.
You're wrong, H-bomber lie. You can't have too much of something if it's good for you. Now watch as I consume enough brain force to surpass even Ben Shapiro's
It's the bear with the big dong.
No! Reasonablest bear! Don't! Your body can't take that much alertness and free thinking.
At the end of the clip, Bill tries to blow the fire out, but did you know that breath also contains carbon dioxide? Checkmate, globeheads.
I'm distracted.
I just proved...
Oh no! He died from having too much IQ. Rest in peace. If you didn't like that character, he's dead. He's gone now.
Since quitting Greenpeace over differences in policy, and Greenpeace have done everything they can to distance themselves from him since he left, Moore has become a consultant for businesses that get a bad rap from environmental organisations. As a former higher-up at Greenpeace, Moore's a great catch for these industries. It's a compelling narrative. Here's someone who really did care about the planet, but he's come out against the people who say we're being unethical and saying that actually we're good, so we must be. Steven Crowder's second and third most popular videos about the climate are interviews with Moore. He's also gone on PragerU as well to list off his regular talking points, but in an even more stilted manner. I think something's wrong with PragerU's teleprompter. This keeps happening when people go on. He's just a real get, you know? He's the guy from Greenpeace, and he says global warming's not real. We got him, we just have to keep quoting him. It's like we're right. We don't have to check or anything. They don't drag this guy onto everything because he's right, because he's not. They drag him on because they can say Greenpeace founder debunks climate in their video titles, and everyone who wants to believe this can go, oh, well, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
and
that's why they'll drag out, like, they'll find, like, oh, hi. They'll find, like, the gay guy who supports Trump, gays for Trump. And they're like, see, Donald Trump is the LGBTQ hero. He's not the foe. Kamala Harris is the foe. Listen to this one gay dude who's on Poppers talk about how gays for Trump. Trump's the guy. He's for the gays. Yeah, like Blair White too. Blair White being pointed to as, see, look, if you're trans, Trump's the one for, yes, hold on. Did you see the clip of Trump trying to find gays for Trump in the audience and he says, you're not gay? Was that for one of his rallies? Almost all the climate change denying scientists are the same that said smoking's not dangerous. Yeah, so this is what they'll do is they'll trot out the one person who, for whatever reasons, usually money, will be like, look, I used to be just like these other people. I was there. I was in the trenches. I'm coming. Hold on. I was in the trenches. And now I'm here to tell you what they don't want you to know.
And, you know, not actually check what he's saying.
Wait, okay, wait, let me watch the clip and then we'll go back. Where's gays for Trump?
Where's gays for Trump? You don't look gay.
You know good. He said you don't look gay.
We did great with the...
God damn it, why is he a content king, man? Okay,
Or anything, which is all wrong. Basically everything he says about the climate can be debunked if you question it, but no one watching this is going to, are they? They think these people have already done it for them. Moore positions himself as the sensible environmentalist. You know, not like those senseless ones that accept the science and for some reason think we should do something about it. I suppose it is sensible, in one sense of the word, to take money from big companies to try to rehabilitate their image. I'm sure the Koch brothers pay very well. I hate to sound like I'm beating a dead dog here. But I wasn't joking when I said that. This talk here is at the Heartland Institute, a conservative and libertarian think tank dedicated mostly to opposing the scientific outlook on climate change. It receives a very large portion of its funding from the Koch Foundation, an organization founded and run by the Koch brothers, two incredibly wealthy, ultra-billionaire oil barons who have spent literally decades spreading this kind of misinformation. It's almost as if this whole thing is just a bunch of rich people trying to hold on to their money by paying to spread lies. By the way, they're one of the main donors to PragerU and the Rubin Report. What a surprise. It's actually pretty clear why Moore's imagination immediately goes to being paid to support a scientific conclusion.
Yeah, one down,
After
one to
all,
go.
That is what he's doing.
Patrick Moore's denialism is wrong, and obviously wrong, because of course it is, and his corporate cheerleading is just immoral.
No, please, I can't die before the other Koch brother dies. Oh my God. Can you imagine? Oh God. They got me, y'all. They got me. It's revenge for Bill Nye. I'm telling you, I can't eat without almost always joking. This is why it's not good for me to eat on stream, because you can't die on stream. I know. I'll get banned. Okay.
Moral, but he goes one step further sometimes in a way that I find special. You see, with denialism and with general anti-science fakery,
Not enough CO2.
there's a line that you
I
can't
need more
cross.
CO2.
There's a reason why a lot of these people say things like, oh, well, you know, I'm not an expert, but...
So here's my take on the climate change issue. On the climate change issue, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert in reading the studies.
Don't worry,
little
Ben, you
stupid
didn't have to
dork.
volunteer that information. It was already obvious. This tacit admission of potential ignorance is an important part of the trickery, because if you claimed to actually...
Ben Shapiro is the type of person who deserves to be bullied, you know? Like, bullying is good sometimes.
know what you were talking about, it would become crystal clear you were deliberately lying when it turned out you were so obviously wrong. But if you say you're an amateur, there's deniability. If Shapiro says something wrong, well, like he said, he hadn't looked that hard into it, and he's not an expert, so for all you know, he wasn't lying.
My purpose here is not at all to pretend to be a scientist, but to get you, the viewer, to think about real science.
I'm not pretending to be a scientist. I just want you to have a think about the one and only one piece of evidence I'm going to show you.
With bullshit, even with ridiculous bullshit, even with obvious lies, there is a line.
Why don't they say that when they're talking about women's bodies? Why don't they say, look, I'm not an expert at women's bodies, but here's what I'm going to tell you about how we should have control over women's bodies.
Establishing this because, in 2014, Patrick Moore tripped on his own dick and fell all the way through the line and onto a live rail and electrocuted himself. Metaphorically, of course. I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm referring to here. It's the thing Patrick Moore is known for more than anything now. I'm referring, of course, to the weed killer incident.
Okay, so some background here. There's a product called Roundup, which was originally produced by Monsanto but has later been acquired by Bayer. It's based on a chemical called glyphosate, a chemical Monsanto discovered and patented, and it's the most used herbicide in the United States, and on the planet for that matter. However, there is some evidence that Roundup causes cancer if you come into heavy, repeated contact with it. There isn't evidence, to my knowledge, that crops treated with it become dangerous to eat, or that limited domestic use is dangerous in this regard, but farmers who use it in large amounts and other agricultural workers like groundskeepers have an increased likelihood to be diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a form of blood cancer. Roundup's current owners, Bayer, have recently been ordered to pay billions of dollars in damages after it was found Roundup had failed to inform customers of the potential risks of using their product. Over 300 more federal lawsuits have been filed, and Costco recently discontinued selling Roundup. It was also banned in France in January. While all of these allegations were happening, French journalist Paul Moreira asked Moore about the safety and potential risks of glyphosate, and Moore, in an attempt to defend the herbicide, said this.
I do not believe that glyphosate in Argentina is causing increases in cancer. You can drink a whole quart of it and it won't hurt you.
Now, obviously you shouldn't drink
Do it,
weed
coward!
killer. This was either a mistake or a lie, but Moreira had a sense of humor and asked him if he would like to drink some.
You want to drink some? We have some here.
I'd be happy to, actually.
But then, click! You can see it in his eyes. You can see him realize he's taken the lie to support the big corporation a bit too far, and he just said he'd be happy to drink weed killer. What follows is, I feel, one of the most informative clips about the ideology that underpins denialism in history.
I'd be happy to, actually. But not really, but
Not really?
I know it wouldn't hurt me.
If you say so, I have some glyphosate.
No, I'm not stupid.
Okay, so you.
No, but I know
so it's dangerous,
I know. No, people try to commit suicide with it and fail fairly
let's
regularly.
Tell the truth.
It's not dangerous to humans. No, it's not.
So you're ready to drink one glass?
I'm not an idiot.
This is a funny
I
clip
love
and
this
it was
interviewer.
shared widely when it happened. Although Moore is often credited as a Monsanto lobbyist, which isn't true, a Monsanto spokesperson denies him ever having been a paid lobbyist. But his cheerleading for a big company, and his being mistaken for a lobbyist, is unsurprising when, in the almost 30 years since he left Greenpeace, he makes his living lobbying for companies like Monsanto and leveraging his former Greenpeace status. I mean, he named his company Green Spirit, for Sobek's sake.
I love that the evidence he used was people try to kill themselves with this all the time and they fail. But I'm not stupid, I wouldn't drink it.
This clip makes it clearer than anywhere else that beneath the veneer of just being skeptical of the scientists and their agendas lies people whose job is not at all related to finding or sharing the truth. Moore realized he'd fucked up and immediately fled the interview. Think about the disconnect as he flicked between his defense of a company's product, claiming it was safe to drink and he'd be happy to, and his rational brain, the brain that actually knows the truth, his understanding that drinking it might actually be really bad and he shouldn't take that risk. But he accidentally took that extra step, said he would be happy to, and now has to argue that he would love to drink.
Hold on, right here.
Between his defense of a company's product, claiming it was safe to drink and he'd be happy to, and his rational brain, the brain that actually knows the truth, his understanding
somewhere
between his
in
up and not at all related of the scientists and their agendas, lies people whose job is not at all related to finding or sharing the truth. Moore realized he'd fucked up and immediately fled the interview.
Okay.
Think about
Who says connard? That word means motherfucker. That's French for like motherfucker or shithead. Was that the interviewer saying it, or was it more?
To drink. His understandably took that extra step, said he would be happy to.
I remember when
and now
hbomberguy
has
used
to
to make
argue
videos.
that he would love to drink some, but he won't because he's not stupid. Climate denialism isn't just a bunch of people who are wrong. It's a bunch of people being paid to be wrong on purpose, to deliberately spread doubt of the truth, mislead the people who are honestly trying to be skeptical, and confirm the beliefs of the ignorant who want to pretend they're skeptical. And ultimately this contributes to perpetuating the profits of a few rich individuals who do not want to be made to reduce their profits or risk being held accountable for the effect their profiteering is having on the world we live on, at the expense of that world. To pretend that there is a real, legitimate, non-astroturfed debate about whether climate change is caused by humans and represents a potential threat is to give in to propaganda from people who are lying and know they're lying and are so used to lying that they will tell you it's safe to drink a weed killer that might be giving the farmers who work with it cancer. They will tell you that being alarmed about a credible threat to humanity's future makes you an alarmist. They will lie to your fucking face while telling you they're the true warriors of science and logic. Something can still be done about the climate. It simply requires dispelling these corporate lies, seeing past the people selling you the chance to pretend you know better than scientists, agitating for real political change, and advocating for a culture that actually accepts science, actually employs reason and skepticism.
In this house, we believe love is love. Science is real.
And doesn't just pretend they're magic words that can be used to make you sound clever.
Almost everyone thinks science and facts and logic and truth are great. We all agree that those words are lovely and mean good things. The problem is a lot of people set out to prove those things are on their side instead of following those things where they lead. It's very easy to be misled by rhetoric into thinking that one idea is more reasonable than another, and it's even easier to find someone who's willing to tell you that what you think right now is already the reasonable thing. That doesn't make you actually right, though. I'm not a very smart person, and this isn't a self-deprecating joke I'm doing here.
I disagree.
Everyone who thinks Dark Souls 2 is bad can attest to this already. I remember once I went to mail a letter and accidentally put the sunglasses in my other hand into the mailbox, and I just tried to quietly erase the memory of watching the sunglasses fade out of view and then drop from my hands as at the very last moment my brain went, hang on. I'm saying this because while humans can be very smart about some things in specific, sometimes humans are, in general, very bad about a lot of things. It's very easy to look at a horizon and say, well, it looks flat to me, or to discount the work of scientists because, well, it just looks a different way to you. And it's very easy to dismiss anyone who might be an authority on an issue as, well, an argument from authority. After all, a PhD is just a piece of paper. It doesn't necessarily mean what that person says is right. And you would be right to assume that. But I also think it's wrong to use that as a deliberate strategy to avoid dealing with the fact that sometimes people do know better than you about complex issues. If you find it easy to discount hundreds of people's life's work because you reckon you know better based on one...
Look, I may just be some guy online, but I think I know better than all these scientists. I might just be one dude who likes to who accidentally will like porn videos a lot on Twitter, but I think I know better than all these people with their stupid pieces of paper that say that they're smart.
Paper you've read? Then you might as well have put your brain in the mailbox. So it turns out there's an advantage to being as rubbish as me. It means you have to put effort into learning things and develop a respect and appreciation for the people who put so much time into learning something, and an understanding that maybe they do know more than you. When I find myself disagreeing with the conclusions of a scientist, I ask myself what they might know that I don't, and go look for that and see if that changes my mind. And when I find a scientist that I happen to find agreeable, I immediately think, well, if they think like I do, then, well, something's up. Let's see what the others have to say and why they might think they're wrong and what their reasons are. The true test of skepticism isn't in finding ways to debunk your opponents or change anyone else's mind. It's in finding ways to understand when you are wrong and learn to change your mind. Sometimes that's easier than others. For example, in this instance, a lot of people who currently deny climate change can freely admit that they were lied to. They were misled by people who only showed them facts that appeared to confirm their beliefs. They hadn't really thought that hard about it. In fact, their thinking had basically been done for them. They'd given over the thinking to someone else who it turned out they couldn't trust, and now they can think for themselves and maybe come to different conclusions. I changed a lot the day I realized that there are people out there who make a living making you feel good for believing what they tell you. And frankly, it gives me hope that that happened to me. Because I know I'm a foolish person, and if I can learn and grow and change, then there's hope for all of us. And I believe that even you, yes, you can one day come to accept the truth that horses don't exist. That's what this video is about. Goodbye.
We're at a briefing today, President...
Oh, man. I mean, you know, there are a lot of things that I wish I believed, right? I wish I believed that the United States was always this force for good. I wish I believed that Israel was this moral state, and they are, you know, everything they do is in self-defense, and we should support them because they are good and we are good. There's a lot of things that I wish I believed, and the truth often is awful. It's really awful. I wish I believed that, yeah, police were here to help, that the role of police was to truly make communities safer, that if you're in trouble, the police are there to help you. Do you believe horses? I wish I believed horses are real. I do. I might be a little selfish here, but I often wish Caroline would fight Verdun and finally win. I wish that Elden Ring was a real game and not just something that you all have conjured up in your minds. And you know what? I wish I believed that climate change wasn't real. I wish I believed that we were being lied to so that the Democrats could win elections. You know, I wish that I wish I believed that. Maybe I will start believing that. You don't wish you believed it, you wish it were true. Yeah, I mean, I think if I believed it, I would believe that it was true. The belief denotes that it is a true thing because I believe it.